What's up, everybody? This is Brian Hugh with Empowering Design, show number 4 on YouTube, where we talk all things design and business with a focus on leadership. Here with me today is Todd Fuller from Todd. So, Todd, how did you get into the design industry?
It was kind of an accident because I didn't know what design was, and was at school with a speech communication major and just started UGA. And the girl who worked security at my all-male dorm, which was very odd, she was working. I came home late at night, and she was working on a residential project on her drafting board. Very drunkenly, I was like, "What is that?" Because I've been doing that since I was 3. And she said it was interior design. So I had no idea that there was a career based on what I was doing, but just the sketches and floor plans, all that stuff that I had grown up doing. So
Oh,
I took a little while, but I ended up getting in the program at UGA and went from there.
okay. So you've transitioned since being or since you started as an interior designer.
Hmm.
Um, so
Transition.
tell me, I guess, a little bit about yourself and your company Todd that you own.
Okay, well, so yeah, I was an interior designer for 10 years, focusing mostly on hospitality. So it was country clubs and hotels. Um, and now, 16 years ago, I finally got an opportunity to go into sales. And in November 2018, I became a multi-line rep, um, representing companies that provide indoor-outdoor furniture, decorative lighting, textiles, art, and accessories to, again, primarily the hospitality industry.
So what is your leadership style like?
Hmm. Admittedly, I am not I'm good about raking muck up, but I don't know if I'm really the best um, leader, because typically I think I tend to be as self-sufficient as possible, and so being a leader or having to rely on other people to do things and working in that team environment has always been a struggle for me. Um, but it's To me, leadership is really about bringing out the best in others, and trusting them to do those tasks that they're given,
Yeah.
and making sure that they're doing the tasks that they're best suited to do. Like, nobody was going to, in interior design, nobody was going to stick me with writing specs and picking out finishes. I was the one who was like, how do we detail the ceiling? And they knew where to put me. And it was very easy to pick that kind of stuff out. Uh,
So you're on the
and-
NEWH Atlanta board.
Mhm.
What's your role there, and like how is your leadership on the board um helped you in your company and then your personal life?
My role on the board is, I am the vice president of development for the Atlanta chapter. Um, it's uh, a role I've done before. I think it feels very different this time, I will say, because I think the board is a lot bigger and we're doing a lot more. Um, we've got a bigger team, and people are actually stepping up to the plate to do the work that they signed up to do.
That's cool.
Again, from my poor leadership skills, when I was on the board before, I think we had lot of great ideas, but it ended up being a small handful of us that really did the entire job. so I've been really, it's made it a lot nicer, and I've been a lot prouder of what our chapter has been able to accomplish, specifically because we're more of a team environment, and we're very different. All of us are very different people. We enjoy different things, but when we come together and we all have our tasks, and people for the most part, it seems like they stay on point, um, and it helps us accomplish a lot more.
What, like you being on the board, how has that affected you, and how have you grown since then, I guess, in
Um,
leadership?
when I was originally on the board, it was great because it introduced me to a lot of people that I didn't know in the industry. When I was coming in from design, I pretty much had my head buried in the computer, doing detailing, but it introduced me to a lot of reps, a lot of other designers, especially when I got into sales. That was super important. Indirectly, I ended up meeting, uh, and for not just meeting on a work level, but actually forming deeper relationships with people that are in the same industry. And a lot of those friendships, whether they're in the industry now or not, I think are still holding true today. Now on the board, I'm still getting a lot of that, but um, I think with our current leadership that we have, it's been, or maybe it's just the way that I'm taking it too, is I see that we're doing a lot more that is, uh, it's more organized, and so I do feel like I am learning to be a better leader. And like I was saying earlier, like leadership is really bringing out the best in others,
Yeah.
making sure that everybody has their job, that it isn't a one man show. It is all of us put together, and everybody's got a job to do, and making sure those right people are doing the job. And if somebody that's in a position and they're not comfortable doing what they're doing, then somebody else steps in, or we get somebody else to cover that role,
Yeah, and I really
whether it's
think
social media or whatever.
yeah, and I really think that you guys have done a really good job this year of overcoming the situation, and uh getting more events together, and promoting designers, and just all of it in general, having CEUs and whatnot, virtual media, virtual networking events, and
Hmm.
yeah.
I will say last year feels almost like it didn't happen. I mean, literally, we really didn't have many events except for the gala at the
Yeah.
end of the year. And I there were some yoga events that we did, but they were very poorly attended. And I saw everybody doing the CEUs, and I attended some for other chapters. Um, but my thought was, well, I mean, they're doing the CEUs, everybody can join in on these. Why are we doing them? And
Yeah.
if everybody else is doing them, will they attend? And they're attending. So that's really awesome. And we knew that that was something that was, um, that people were taking advantage of, that they liked. So it's, why not throw those out there?
Todd, how did you get into the design industry, and where do you currently work?
Uh, well, I graduated from a UGA in 1994 and floundered around until about 1998. Worked for the Olympics and the Gap.
Oh,
Fun
wow.
places, yeah. I sold T-shirts for the Olympics, although I did try to get into their architecture department. Um, that didn't work. But I got my first hospitality job in '98 with Ferry Hayes and Allen, and they did country clubs. And I always swore in school that I would never do country clubs, that I wanted to be a lead designer, and do environmental types of projects. But
Yeah, it's amazing how we kind of always, what we imagine what we're going to do out of school is not always what's going to happen.
and that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned in my career is, ne- you can have ideals of what you'd like to do, but don't be so focused on those ideals that you give up opportunities.
Yes.
Because I have had, actually, well, I'm skipping ahead, but one of the sales job that I had the longest was working for Icon Design Resources, and I worked for them for 9 years before I became an independent rep. And when they first approached me about the open position, again, I was like, no, 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 I'm good here. I've got, there's, hospitality's having this big green movement. This was 2007, 2008. They're having
Okay.
this big green movement going on. I'd like to be eventually I'd like to be an independent rep who's like focused on uh, sustainable hospitality products and how this is going to be a great thing. Then 2008 hit.
Oh yeah.
I got a huge pay cut and things were not going well at all. And luckily, the person who ended up getting the job that I was asked to interview for had moved to New York for another opportunity. And so that opened it up. And by the time I was able to talk to the person who ended up being my boss, when she told, I mean, it was such a natural fit. And I was thinking so much of like that opportunity. I really didn't even open myself up to the possibility.
Yeah.
And even the year prior, when I had all these ideals of what I wanted to do, I probably had a better chance of hitting the ideals that I wanted to do if I had taken that opportunity the year before. So I've had a lot of conversations with people along the way that where opportunities come up and where they feel like they have an opportunity for me, and I'll hear them out because I'm not gonna I can't I refuse to say no to anything anymore without at least first hearing the idea and just making sure I'm not saying no prematurely,
Yeah.
specifically because of that reason. I would have it was because 2008 was a mess, and I never would have had that horrible mess, and I would have been in much better financial shape if that if I just gotten over my pride and listened. But
Yeah.
anyway,
I mean,
so
hindsight's always 2020. You always got to learn
mhm.
from everything. Can't.
Yeah, that's yeah, definitely. But so I worked for Perry Hayes and Allen. In
Okay.
2000, I went to Niles Bolton. I was there for a year before a friend of mine had called up and said, "Hey, I got this guy that used to be the VP for image design, and he is going off on his own, and he needs somebody to do document production." And I'm assuming that's kind of like what you had with Cinda, I
Yeah.
think.
So yeah, when I was doing, so I own my own business. I design hotels and restaurants. Primarily do the architectural aspect, and yes, construction drawings is my main focus, and that's kind of what I was doing for different architects and designers, such as Cinda from Design Associates.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of yeah, that's definitely one of the
So yeah,
things.
so I mean, for a few years, I ended up doing document production for him, but it also left open opportunities because I was contract.
Yeah.
When I wasn't busy doing his stuff, I had every opportunity to go out and try and get work from other design firms. So while I was with him, I ended up doing contract work for Design Continuum, Black Dog
Okay.
Studio, the Van
Wow.
Dresser Company, Raymond Design, which is no longer around, but they do. What's the name of one of the guys that worked for Raymond went off on his own, and they're up in Roswell now.
Hmm.
But they
Yeah, I've
do
never heard of them.
like airport retail, which is
Uh,
interesting niche that I didn't expect.
they're in Roswell now.
Yeah, it was some interesting projects that got me a little bit out of my comfort zone. But it was a great 3 years. But things kind of started drying up in 2003,
Yeah.
and I ended up taking a position with CMMI, which is
Okay.
now C plus TC. And
Yeah,
uh,
they're pretty
my
popular.
experience and connections from my first position with Ferry Hayes and Allen paved the way for me to be able to work with all these other firms. And when I was at CMMI, I was in my 10th year and of being a designer, and I realized that I didn't have connections to actually get jobs on my own.
Yep.
Like I didn't have any ownership groups. I didn't have any project owners that I worked with. I was always the background guy. So I
Yep.
didn't have these relationships that would let me, um, I mean, because even if I didn't have my own company, I was going to become a principal. I needed to have, I need to bring something to the table when if I went to go work for TVS or
Yeah.
if I was going to be a project manager at some of these firms. there's a point where they expect you to be able to bring in your own work and not just do the work.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah. And
and I didn't have that.
yeah,
So
that's
I
kind of,
realized just my crazy chattiness and my outgoingness, that I probably had a better chance in sales, but what the hard part about that is when you're the guy that's in the background, it's hard to find those connections
yeah.
of who to find a job with if the reps don't know who you are. So
Yeah.
I interviewed with like a carpet company, and I did a phone interview with a fabric company, and they were they were basic, like they were asking, what's a CFA? And I'm just like, I don't know, but I mean, how hard is that? It's not, I didn't say that, but I'm thinking and now I know a CFA is a cutting floor approval. So
Okay.
you're getting a sample directly, you're getting a sample of the exact fabric that's going to be that you're buying
Okay.
for your project, so that you can actually hold it up and make sure the dye lots match.
Yeah.
And now the industry standards, I'm not even sure a CFA needs to be done. That's another story.
Yeah.
But because I didn't know what a CFA was, they were like, okay, yeah, you're not good for this job. And in hindsight, that was just so short-sighted.
On their part, yes, definitely. Because
Yeah,
I mean, you can have knowledge in other aspects. Not everybody is, 100% rounded. That's how we learn from each other.
exactly. And it took me, what, a minute to tell you what a CFA was?
And pretty much.
I mean, if you're not willing to train me on that part, then you don't. And that's where the conversation pretty much ended too. So it was just kind of stupid. Anyway.
That's
But I
crazy.
finally found an independent rep that I knew through a couple friends and interviewed with him,
Okay.
and he gave me the chance, and I worked for him for 4 years before I went to go work for Icon. So it was the thing that I needed to get in. And actually, the who I worked for was Herb Adcock, who is the husband of Jillian Van Dresser,
Okay.
who
Yeah.
is one of the Atlanta. She was one of the founding members of the Atlanta chapter of NEWH. I would talk to her about getting in places, and she said, "You need to get involved with NEWH." And that's next thing I knew, I was on. Not only I was thinking, "Oh yeah, I'll go to some events or do something," and next thing I knew, I mean,
You
you
got
know how it
hooked.
is. You show interest, and suddenly you're the president of the board.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty
wait a
much.
minute, I didn't expect this. Um,
Pretty
this is
much.
not what I expected. I just wanted to do a couple of events, but um, NEWH was what really paved the way for me to be a good rep and to open up a lot of channels um, that would have taken me a lot longer, I think, to get established. Because it's a whole different thing when I'm meeting a lot of designers in the industry at a social event,
Yeah.
and the first time when they're meeting me is me doing a presentation at their firm.
Yeah.
So it put me in a much more friendly context, um, and also let them know that I wasn't one of those reps that was going to be like, so what about that project? What about that project? When is it going to come in? Which
Yep.
there's a few of those out there.
Always is.
Yeah, yeah. So I worked for Icon for 9 years, and something in the last year was up, and something was going weird, and I was weighing my options of what I could do, and really the best option for me, I knew, was to go independent or become a multi-line rep
Yeah.
when it
Yeah,
all
I
first
remember
happened.
that. It was a little
So
a little crazy at that time.
yeah, with the current situation that we're in, it has made things. Starting a business has been hard,
Oh yeah.
but I'm definitely
Definitely.
starting to see light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not what I had necessarily planned on, but I'm surviving, and I think I'll make it through. And I've still got some great projects that I'm working on with my designers that I work with, um, and trying to figure out how to grow
Wow.
amidst our current situation.
Definitely see, your growth. Because you started in what, 2018, I think? Was it
Yeah,
2018?
November 2018 was when I opened up the business.
So Todd, can you please tell everybody about your company, Todd Reps?
Yeah, well, it's actually just Todd,
Oh, it's just Todd?
and
Okay.
I named it Todd, just because it's just me representing lines, and any other name just seemed kind of ridiculous. I didn't want my friends in the industry to have to ask, like, "Oh, I wanted to use that line that Todd was talking about earlier, but I can't remember I need to find his email, and I can't remember the name of his company." And this way, it's simple. It's
Yeah,
Todd.
it makes
I
it
mean,
easier.
and yeah, and then there were some jokes too about the like Will and Grace with the Just Jack, that it's
Uh-huh.
just Todd. So that's been kind of funny, but luckily that seems to have died down. So of course I just revived it, I guess. I don't mind it. But
Yeah.
so I represent currently 7 lines to the A&D community,
Okay.
with a focus on products for hospitality.
What does leadership look like to you, and how is your approach unique?
Well, leadership is super hard for me because I was taught to be self-sufficient. It's very much the way my parents were. And to me, what leadership is really about bringing out the best in others and trusting them to do the tasks and being open to the results, not necessarily being my way,
Yeah.
which is hard for me to give up some of that control, especially uh, I can, when it comes to CAD drawing. I'm very particular about how my CAD drawings are,
Oh,
and
I am too.
most CAD people I know are the exact same way. So uh, to give up that control and just, if the line color is yellow versus green, nobody's
Yeah.
gonna die.
Or
Actually, I would, because I
the
can't tell the difference between the two of them because I'm red and green colorblind. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, uh,
I'm more so the line thickness. I'm like, as long as it shows a little bit wider, we good. It doesn't have to be, you know.
so I don't think uh, that it's unique to me, but many leaders that I've worked with were so specific on how they wanted things done, and I know
Okay.
I can be that way too. That they weren't open to suggestions or new ideas, and I think
Hmm.
people want to. Uh, I think a lot of people who are leaders want to shut down people with less experience because their ways are tried and true. Um, but sometimes less experienced people don't necessarily have the full spectrum of knowledge that's needed, but
Exactly.
sometimes they come up with brilliant ideas. And I
Yep.
think a lot of times we're just too quick to say no,
Yeah.
or remember the time when we wanted to be the person that was listened to.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I got that little stupid millwork detail on the country club, the first country club I was working on, it was my idea, and it it made me happy for weeks. So I think that's always important with leadership.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel you. What fuels your leadership style and why?
I think what fuels me is that I can learn so much from other people.
Yeah, me too.
Um, and we all have different backgrounds and influences. And I feel like I've learned this a lot more later in my life. I wish I was more open to this when I was in my 20s and 30s. But uh, because of everybody's different backgrounds and influences, I believe the best ideas really come from collaboration with others.
Hmm.
And when we're open to the ideas, to all the different ideas.
So, what is one habit, trait, or mindset that you're currently working on to grow yourself?
The trait I'm always working on is focus.
Yeah.
I am a very creative person who always has ideas and wants to do lots of things, but I end up with 10 projects that are never finished. It's very quick for people to say, "Oh my God, I'm just so ADD." I'm literally ADD, classified, take the medicine, the whole bit. Um, and I need to focus on one task at a time, and uh, be more deliberate about my time management.
So, where can everybody find you on social media if they'd like to learn more about you, or or your company?
The best way to find me anywhere is just to Google Todd Baxter Fuller, which is my full name, and you're used to
So,
get
yeah. So, Todd,
that.
it's been great talking with you today. And we've talked about your business, your leadership style, how you got into the design industry. But before you go, I have one more question for you. What advice do you have for aspiring leaders?
Listen, I think that's kind of the recurring thing that we've been talking
Yeah.
about, is making sure that uh, making sure that you're listening to your people, and not getting so bogged down that you're not doing right by your people.
So, everybody, thank you for watching another episode of Empowering Design. I'm your host, Brian Hugh. And if you enjoyed this content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, or share this content with anyone you think that will benefit from it.